Good morning.
Yes. All
It
right.
is what it is.
Well, listen, if you know a woman, it's important that they look good, right? It's like most guys, right?
Yeah.
My wife is all excited because she finally has an appointment to go to the hairdresser next week. And I said, "Honey, your hair looks fine." She goes, "You don't get it." And I'm like, "I don't get it. What do I know?" So it's pretty funny. All
Yeah,
right. All right. Good morning, Chris. Welcome. Alan, welcome. And Wildest, good morning. Can you hear us?
Morning. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you.
Great.
All right. We're going to be starting momentarily. We're just letting people on, and then we'll start the call. Good morning, Alan. Chris, can you hear us okay?
I'm going to grab his notepad.
Yes, I can hear you guys fine.
Excellent. So, buddy, are you working today with that jacket, or are you just dressing?
I was told to dress for the job I want, so that's what I'm doing.
If you want my job, buddy.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Very informal today. Take off your jacket. We're just chatting. So
that's what I like to hear.
Yeah, and when this is not an interview, this is coffee. All right. So when we get going, we'll open it up in a minute. All right. Alan's out on the porch again. Alan, do you live on that porch?
You know, I got news for you. There's a lot of people in my neighborhood that would give anything for my cigar lounge set up here outside.
I know, which is really good. I mean, I think I shared with you my 30th wedding anniversary was Tuesday, and we were going to go to a restaurant, but the restaurants haven't opened in Connecticut yet. So they do have outdoor seating. Yep. And it was right at this point do we go and sit under an awning? And it was one of those nights where once the sun went down, it got cool. It was overcast. And my wife really wasn't up to going out. She goes, 30 years ago, she goes, we could have done it. But anyways, we ended up getting some takeout, and we sat in our patio, and she's like, it's hard to beat the patio at home type of thing.
Well, let me just show you very briefly, not to make a big deal out of it. I have this outdoor fire pit.
Nice.
And it has 2 benches with nice cushions and all my little cigar paraphernalia. And it's just, it's a little nirvana that I was encouraged to put together with my girlfriend. We've been going together for 3.5 years, and she says, you got this huge house, which is not huge. It's a 4-bedroom, whatever, 2,200 square foot. She says, but you don't have anything to enjoy your friends with. So my friends will come over, and we just sit outside and play a little music, have the fire pit going. And I have never been this socialite kind of guy, but it's just been really enjoyable to meet people. And when they find out, I like cigars or whatever, wine, however, I go, you got to come over. And I've never been that personality ever. I used to say, nice to meet you, shake their hand, and walk away. So it's, I enjoy it. We created something that I didn't think I would enjoy, but I do.
All right. Well, Alan, if I'm in the area, I'm going to stop by now, but I'm bringing whiskey,
You
right?
are more than welcome. Everybody here is more than welcome.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So good morning, everyone. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking, again, business development as a topic. But before we start, did everyone get my little reminder email last night?
Was there an announcement on there that we missed or I missed?
Well, I sent out a reminder. It was probably about 7 o'clock, and I said, "Dude, do I wait till the morning?" And I don't know. There are days I'm right on top of things, and other days I don't know what day it is or what time it is. So, good morning, Natasha.
Last time it came on, it didn't come on my phone, and I couldn't figure that one out for the life of me, so I missed it. But that's the way it is.
Yeah. All right. So Barry had a question, and before we start, I want to show my coffee cup. Does anyone know what this is?
Looks like Batman or something similar to it.
All right. I'll take another guess. Anyone else?
Obviously not.
Something adventure related. A Marvel character? No.
Good guess. All right.
Almost looks
Extra
like you should
credit.
have taken Darth Vader's mask off.
I'll go
That's
closer.
close.
I'm lost.
Schwarzenegger outfit and something.
All right, hold on.
Don't feel bad. I had no clue either.
Oh, I don't feel bad at all.
Anyone know who this is?
So long
Spock.
and prosper.
All right.
See, that's all he's known for. Spock.
Yeah, I was thinking something along Star Wars, maybe.
Yeah, Natasha,
Nice.
you know what? You're killing me here.
Go ahead, Steve. Tell him.
No, I ain't gonna tell you now. You guys are not worthy.
Oh, it's from Star Trek. I just don't know exactly what their name is. That's
All
what
right,
you got
I know.
behind you too, isn't it?
Right. So it's kind of funny. So I'm like, I was sitting here. So I'm a Trekkie from way back, and
I wouldn't have guessed that.
I know, and it's kind of funny. And I'm sitting here thinking, I've been using the same John Wayne coffee mug for a while, but I want to change it up a little bit. And I use this. This is a Star Trek Borg.
Oh, okay. I don't feel bad now.
I noticed, and you're all dead to me. I just want you to know that. So that's okay. You know what? I'll have to get something that's more relevant. I don't even know what more relevant is these days. There's so much on, but I don't know. All right. So good morning. My name's Steve Porcaro. With me, as usual, is Barry. Barry.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So what we're going to do is we'll do a quick introduction. We'll go around the room. Chris, Natasha, Wildis, how do I pronounce your name? I'm sorry. Oh, can he hear us? And then Alan. So we'll do a quick introduction, for those of us who don't know each other, and then we're going to jump in and see what's happening. Want to try to focus on business development topics. And again, for those of you who are transitioning, that's part of your business development as well. But just give us a quick update, what's happening and what would be most helpful from the group. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris. Chris, welcome. Give us a little background. What part of the country? What's your favorite TV show?
Okay. All right. So I'm down from, hello, everybody. My name is Chris Pate. I'm 24 years old. I am fresh out of college. I just finished up with my master's from Kennesaw. Favorite TV show, you guys can't laugh. My girlfriend and I love to watch a show called Ghost Adventures. They go into these haunted places. They film everything. It's pretty awesome. But I'm really excited to be here, learn a little bit more about business development, professional development, those type of things, as I'm trying to get my foot in the door and kind of break into the field. But that's me, Chris Pate. Nice to meet all you guys.
All right. Welcome, Chris. All right. Wildest, can you hear me? Oh, good. Are you on the phone? Who called in with extension 216?
Are you talking about, Steve, that would be me. I'm trying to get it the other way. I don't have Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay. Sure. Wanna give us a quick introduction? What part of the country and how can we help you today?
Yeah. It's Catherine Miles. My company's Ruby Slipper Car Seat Cover, and I help people get in and out of cars easily with a unique swivel motion, and just working on building the business.
So for those of you who don't know, Catherine, you got hit with those rainstorms across the Northeast and you lost power, or?
We didn't get the actual storm, but we lost power for 3 hours. We'll see what happens today. We're supposed to get really severe storms today.
Okay.
But I didn't count on it knocking my Wi-Fi out.
All right. Well,
now I got to figure out how to get that back. So
I know. Well, have you tried unplugging your modem and plugging it back in?
I did that and I hit the reset. So I'll just work on it after the call.
Yeah, no, geez. All right. Well, hang in there. All right. Good. All right, Natasha, good morning. You want to say hi?
Hi. So yes, I'm Natasha, and I'm actually in the Atlanta area. And I know, Chris. Hi. So I am actually transitioning from medical research to medical device sales. I do have a couple updates, just that I had like 4 rounds of interviews. And the good part is I made it to the fourth, and now I'm just waiting for follow up to see where we go from here. And then currently under review with Medtronics. So I have been working really hard and networking as much as possible. But yeah, and my favorite show right now would be Caribbean Life HGTV. I love it.
Okay.
Okay, go
All
ahead.
right. I know. Well, it's funny when I listen when I'm out in the patio, I listen to a lot of smooth jazz, but I like Latin smooth jazz, and there's a station mix plays a lot of Caribbean Latin music. It's very relaxing. And my wife says to me, "Why do you like that?" I said, "Because it's a little bit of a getaway, right? It allows me, but I like the music as well." So, oh, look at Catherine joining us. Oh, on her phone and everything. All right. So, Alan, good morning. You want to introduce yourself to our crowd, please?
Yeah, Alan Prell from Salem, Oregon, and basically went from ER to pharmaceuticals to diagnostics, medical diagnostics, and currently, which I'm very happy about. We'll see what happens. There's a outdoor apparel company in my neighborhood that is hiring for a medical, I guess, consulting role. They're trying to go make face masks and gowns, and they were just looking for somebody who understood and was more familiar and comfortable with the medical community, which they are not in. So we'll find out what happens. My fingers are crossed that I will fit in as well as I hope I will.
Congratulations. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Tim, good morning. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Well, good.
Yeah.
No pressure though, but you're up. We're just doing a quick introduction. What part of the country are you from? How can we help you today? But more importantly, what's your current favorite TV show?
I am in the Northwest, just outside of Seattle. Probably the current show I'm watching is Billions.
Yes, good one.
Oh man, I'm out of the loop. All right. All right. My kids watched Avatar, back in the day, and it came on Netflix. So I was pressured into watching it. So I just finished the series. I just binged it over the last week or so. But I have 3 boys, for those of you who don't know. So stuff like that's important to my family. So I have to be able to have that common language. All right. So
I apologize, guys. I had to step out and deal with something, but I'm back. This is Wilds Crumb. I'm from Atlanta, and
thank you.
Been in the business about 9 years, and going through a transition right now. So looking for a smooth new opportunity.
All right. So good. Before you go, what's your current favorite TV show?
I heard what Tim said, and I hadn't thought about it, but Billions might just have to be it.
Wow. Okay. All right.
And I'll step in and remind everyone Bull was mine, since I left that out of my intro.
Okay. Catherine, did you share a show? You're muted. You got to unmute. Oh, she's on her.
Hallmark.
Hallmark. Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, good. See, now we've broken the ice. Now we're comfortable. I'm not going to make any type of judgment on your TV shows, but, not till later. And you can judge mine. But, oh, Catherine, before I go, do you know who this is? Tim? Wild? You guys know?
I should say what it is.
What it is. Who it is. All right, I'll give you a hint.
It's the captain, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Captain Picard turned into a Borg. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. Okay. I'll just share this last personal story. So when I met my wife in 1986, we just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. One of the things I did on a date, you know, it's like, what do you do before the internet, right? All this stuff. Well, there was a Star Trek convention in Boston, and I took my wife, and she loved it. And you know, we went out to dinner, we went dancing, and I said, if she likes Star Trek, she looks good, she sounds good, she dances, she's a keeper. So after dating her for 3 months, I asked her to marry me, and we've been together since. So
There you go.
So yes, Star Trek played an important role there, so it's pretty funny. All right, so let's jump into our topic or theme. And again, this is kind of informal, but again, we are talking, it sounds like we want to talk about, there's some people transitioning on the call, and this is an uncertain time for many people, but, and I think we talked about this Monday, things are still happening. People are having interviews, people are getting calls. Natasha, for the people who are just joined us, would you like to share where you are? Because it sounds like you're almost neck deep with some of these things.
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually applying in the Atlanta area. So I know it's a couple companies that have been very proactive with hiring. Specifically, it's a pain management company because they realize that people are still having pain, and it is a referral base. So you're connecting with the physician, and you're making sure that they write the prescription for the patient to get this pain management that is supposed to also help with reducing opioid prescriptions. So that particular area, I feel like pain management is hiring heavy. Medtronics have released a lot of jobs, as well as I just had a recruiter reach out to me from I may not know how to pronounce that one, but it's like Novets. I'm not sure. Did I say it right?
Notice.
Yes. So they're releasing a bunch of new jobs. She said mid-June. So I feel like people are picking up. And for Medtronics, I have a couple applications that's under review. I'm not sure whether it's going to go, but it is good to know that they're still like hiring. But I have found that it's really hard to find those good entry-level positions. So a lot of the positions that I've applied for, since I do have a little experience in medical device sales, I had to just use my experience as much as possible. But I did get some feedback because I want to go into surgical sales, and I would love to ask the group like what their thought process is about that. But specifically like trying to get a preceptorship or seeing if I can shadow a surgeon because I have no surgical background. So yeah, that's the question I'll leave off with. Like if I specifically want to gain experience in surgical sales, like what's my best approach?
So Natasha, this is Alan. I got one quick question, and I'll let the rest of the group answer. There's my background for the last 8 years has been the pain industry, and I'm finding the exact opposite that you are. What is the industry, or what is the company in the pain industry that you're finding out is reaching out to the community?
Yeah, so this company, great question, Alan. This company is called Match One Medical, and they have quite a few positions in different parts. And I think they're located in Pennsylvania, but they're like hiring in Atlanta and in a couple other places.
Right, fine, I'll look into that. Match One Medical. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, thank you. So that's a great question about surgical sales, near and dear to my heart. When people talk about medical device, that's my go-to because that's where I grew up, where I started. But sometimes I forget you mean, oh, we sell medical devices outside the OR? Yeah, there are. But, you know, but that's a good question. And Tim and Wildus, you guys have some surgical background, I think. You guys want to share your thoughts in retrospect?
Yes, same with me, Steve. All my experience has been in the OR. 99% of my life is in the OR in scrubs. Makes it easy to decide what you're going to wear every day. A spine. I've been in spine. I got my start, I guess, 9, maybe 10 years ago. I was I knew someone that knew someone, which is how 90% of these jobs get filled.
90, it's networking.
And it's, it's taught me to extend my network, get my feelers out there to the industry. But anyway, I had previously been in the world of healthcare development in real estate. I worked for a healthcare REIT in leasing, and I was in between jobs, and I had one of the practice administrators for a neurosurgery group. I had maintained a friendship with her for quite some time, because when you're leasing space for grade A medical office buildings in right off of hospital campuses, it's big money. So you're dealing with 8 figures of commitment. So you're talking to these people for 7-8 months, and you get to know them really well. Anyway, she said these guys have an opportunity in what it in essence was a pod, a physician-owned distributorship. And so I went in there, and I worked with these guys for about 4 years. Pods have a real bad name, understandably so. And so anyway, my guys were on the up and up, but anyway, they made us blow out. And so then I just folded right back over and represented these devices that we had been working with as just a direct rep. So that's my experience. I've never not been in the operating room, and it's fun, and it's a great gig.
Well, to your point, it's you don't know what you don't know, and it's not for everybody. And I worked in the operating room in the Navy. I was a surgical tech, so I got recruited by Synthes to do orthopedic trauma, and to me it was a natural transition. But after 12 years being on call, it was great. And back in the day, Synthes didn't have a separate spine division, so I sold spine for a year. But again, we had very little spinal, and there wasn't a lot of implantation back then. And but the transition of where you'd like to go, and it's a very exciting job for the right person. And it's one of these things that I think this is one of the things, and I've shared this before. Just because somebody likes working in a certain job doesn't mean you're going to like it, right? We don't like the same clothes. We don't like the same restaurants. We don't go to the same movies. So it's interesting when people say, I have a friend, or, my old college roommate enjoys selling spine implants. I had a conversation with somebody. They said, yeah, I want to go into spine. And I said, why? Oh, my friend likes it. I said, well, do you know what they do? Well, no. I said, well, they go into surgery, they sell spine equipment, you're there. I mean, some people didn't realize that they had to be part of the surgical procedure as a consultant and watch operations. Now, some of those procedures, and again, I've done everything from the neck down, well, actually from the top of the head down, and some are bloodier than others. So, not everyone's prepared for that. Could you adapt? Without a doubt, but you just want to make sure you understand what you're getting into. So Natasha, to your point, finding someone, I think, is a great way to do that. Before I go ahead, Tim, what's your background again? Do you mind sharing your experience? I think you have some surgical experience too.
Yeah, no, I've been with a number of different surgical companies, mainly in the orthopedic space. Previously, I'm in a transition currently as well. I was laid off at the beginning of this from a biologic company where we had amnio placental-based products that was used in the clinic and in the OR. And then we also had a capital piece that was used directly for wound care. So it was used in wound care clinics. So a little exposure to both. Kind of made the decision a while back to not just be a one-hit wonder with ortho and kind of spread out. So the products I've sold of late have been ortho, general surgeons, plastic surgeons, uro, kind of spread out a little bit. So that's kind of a little of my background, where I'm at. I think the OR is it's a unique place to sell. As you've sold there, I think you and I have talked one other time before, Steve. I think you were at Arthrex around the same time I was with an Arthrex distributor on the West Coast.
Correct.
They're a great company, they have great products. I think the challenge in the OR is you spend so much time managing that one customer a lot of the day and not seeing other people. I don't, in my humble opinion, I don't really look at those people as salespeople, more of account managers.
Well, Tim, you brought up a good point. And first of all, I just want you to say you bear a striking resemblance to some famous movie star. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yeah. That's my alter ego.
But, and so Natasha, so I'll share this, and Tim and I, again, I went from orthopedic trauma to sports medicine. My children were young. I was on call. I wanted a better work-life balance. The sports medicine world was more elective, but to Tim's point, I finally left the OR because the type of jobs that you sell, and again, it's not for everyone. When I started in my territory and our company, we didn't have a lot of trauma business. I was out there I was converting accounts, right, from Zimmer. Zimmer Orthopedics was our big competitor. So I was out there selling, converting, and it was great because I was actually selling. After I sold the products, I would bring new products in as the company brought them in. So there was a good part of my job was selling, but we also were consultants, sales consultants, and we went into the operating room to provide technical support to the nurse physicians. I had two universities with multiple teaching hospitals. So you spend a lot of time, and this is what I love about this job in this industry, is that you do a lot of medical education. So it was great. The young residents imprinted on you. And even today, some of the guys I go see, I knew them when they started their residency a long time ago. So, but the downside is I did spend a lot of time in the operating room, and wearing scrubs is great. You know what you're going to wear. I didn't wear, I wore a suit, but I wore it for like 5 minutes to the hospital getting there and 5 minutes on the way back. And, but you are taking care of accounts. And to Tim's point, this is why I finally left. There are some hospitals, and again, customer service, and I'm just sharing my experience. When we get to the point where the hospitals were so overwhelmed with technology that they called you up and said, Dr. So-and-so has a wrist fracture or an ankle fracture and had like you there for the case, you're over here thinking, okay, what's going on? Is it something unique? Is there some challenge? They said, no, they just want someone around just to make sure it goes well. There's a new nurse scrubbing. And you're like, okay, so I have to take 3 hours out of my day to go do a case that, if I'm lucky, I only lost $20 just because of the amount of income. On the other hand, they would call me for the big polytrauma cases in the middle of the night, and you would go in and put all this equipment in. It's great. That was a worthwhile case. You're building relationships, and this is my experience. There were days towards the end when I needed to be out there growing my business, and I was stuck in the OR pacing like a caged animal because I couldn't go out and sell. And again, I hate to say this, but I had my Palm Pilot, my Trio, and I was messaging, email messages. We couldn't use cell phones in the hospital back then. So I would be getting calls from people, and I would have to leave. And I said, if you need me, I'll be in the doctor's lounge or the nurse's lounge. And it got to the point where I felt like we weren't selling the hospitals we were servicing so much. And it's a fine line, and depending on the product and the company and where they are, if you're a hunter, being told that you have to sit and be a farmer is like the kiss of death. And the nice thing is, again, where I was being that consultative sales professional, I could swing in either direction, and I enjoyed that. And there are times when you have to do more of one than the other. But going forward, and I think, Chris, this goes for you too, knowing what your sweet spot is. You want to be able to find a job, a position that will allow you to do more of the things you're good at. And if you're coming from a limited sales background, you want to, and again, there are tools out there to figure out where you fit into this. Unlike going to the ice cream store, you can't try every flavor of job, right? So you have to step back and say, what are the top things I like doing in a sales role? What are the top 5 things I don't want to do or I want to do less of? And then, so that gives you that parameters. But a surgical job for the right company and the right role is very exciting. And for the wrong role, it's like what do we call it? The mink-lined handcuffs, right? So kiss of death. So I just want
I'm sorry, just to top off what you're saying and to identify, I had about a half-hour conversation the other day with a gentleman, and finally and I never heard the term, and I guess as I'm naive or new to it, he says, well, are you a hunter or are you an account manager? And I said, well, when you really come down to it, I find a hunter is more of a used car salesman, and an account manager is when you grow the business and massage your clients. He goes, well, I'm looking for a hunter. I think that this is not going to be a good fit for either one of us. Thank you. We could have identified that in the first 10 minutes of the interview. So anyway, thank
Natasha,
you for
Natasha has company. As long as they have clothes on, that's okay. So Alan, so to your point, so one of the reasons why I do what I do now is when I work with individuals, it's all about helping them find the right fit. And sometimes people get hired, and I had one of my good friends, he came from the pharmaceutical industry, and he got recruited out of college. And even to this day, sometimes working in pharma before med device is like the kiss of death, because the pharma industry is really a farmer type sales, and it's like a long-term drip marketing versus a hunter or a sales role. So, and some of you might have heard this, but bear with me. The analogy I use is a professional athlete. You can have different types of professional athletes, but they have different skill sets. So you can't take a pro golfer and a pro football, baseball, hockey player and say, yeah, they're all professional athletes, they're interchangeable. They have a different skill set, they have a different ability, they have different training. So yes, they may have certain behavioral aspects that makes them professional athletes, but you want to make sure that they understand their role. So what happens is I have people who are an expert golfer trying to apply for an expert football player role. And when in the past, people say, if you can sell, you can sell. Well, that's not really true, right? There's a continuum. You have pure hunters who love to go out and they love the art of the deal, and they close, they present, close, they prospect, close. And then there are account managers who like to build relationships who over time, and you think of a pearl, you have this little problem, and over time they add a little lacquer over time to smooth it out, and over time. So they don't have a big home run. They do their little base hits and they get on base. And usually they're commodities, right? They're not new technology. They're tongue depressors, OR gowns, suture, and then there are people who love selling the high tech equipment, right? When I got a job with Synthes and even Arthrex, we were selling cutting edge equipment, right? We were market leaders. So not only could I sell high tech equipment, I could go out, I had an opportunity to stretch my legs and sell and be as a hunter. And then I also had the ability to go and be a farmer. So I could have the best of both worlds. And there were times when I had to balance that, so on one hand, I built all these great accounts. So this is the curse of death, or the kiss of death. And again, whatever we say here is confidential, right? So the year I made the most money was the year I was the most miserable. My work-life balance, I had built up all these level 1 and 2 hospitals. I had put all my equipment in there, and I said to them, hey guys, if you need me, you have any trauma cases, call me. And this is before we had case covers or associate reps. So they would call me morning, noon, night, holidays, snowstorms, and I'd go out like the firemen. It was great, but after a time it took its toll. And even making all the money wasn't worth it, right? Because I couldn't get the time back with my family. And what happened is, this was the curse, right? You build up the territory and then you have to support it. So this is why you want to be careful about the product and the lifestyle. So Alan, so there are people who sold capital equipment. If you're selling MRI machines, sports medicine, shaver stands, video monitors, things like that, these are purchases people would make every couple years, right? There was a life cycle. You didn't really have to spend a lot of time nurturing and farming those, but when you go out there, you have to make the sale and move on, right? So that was the hunter mentality. And then the people who use consumables like OR gowns and the drapes and the suture, they use that every day and they needed to restock it. And you would go in there and manage the account and build that relationship. And again, it's not better or worse, it's just different, because you have to remember, in each one of these medical products, there are people there who are number one in their company and number one in the country for suture, gowns, MRI machines, orthopedic implants, spinal implants, general surgery, mesh. So what happens is, finding the best fit, the job that will allow you to do more things that you're good at and minimize the things, is really what your goal should be, regardless of the company or the product, right? What I mean by that is, there are people who've called me up and said, hey, Steve, I want to work for a Fortune 100 or 500 or 1,000 company. I want to have this great title. And I'll say, okay. So they would get the job and they would call me 3 months later and say, yeah, how's it going? Nah, not so good. Why? Well, I'm not getting traction. I'm not thriving. I'm not growing. How come? Oh, it's not a good fit. So what happens is, again, and I'll just use this analogy. My wife and I laugh about it. My wife does fashion illustration, right? She's into fashion. For the women on the call, when you buy clothes, and even men, right? If we could just buy clothes without trying them on, it would be great. But the reality is, everything's a slightly different fit. And when you look at a sales job, how do you try it on mentally to make sure it's a good fit for you? So part of this is being strategic. The whole reason why we have these discussions is to minimize sending out 1 million resumes and then, getting prepared and saying, oh, they didn't hire me, or I didn't do well in the interview. Well, was it because you weren't prepared, or it wasn't a good fit and you were trying to say, sure, I can be a golfer. Have you ever played golf? No, I played football for 20 years, but I can do it.
Well,
now, the funny thing is,
I had my worst fit was a genetic cancer drug or a cancer test. And at the end of 5 months, I remember them saying, just tell them this, just tell them that. And my answer to them is, they are masters and PhDs in genetics. These are not stupid people. You can't just tell them this and it's, half a truth. They're going to call you on it, and they're, you can't lie to them. And the response is, you're a salesman, never mind the science. So I realized at that point, and we both agreed, it just wasn't a good fit. But that's what I'm thinking of. There's some questions you just have to know what to ask in an interview. But thank you for your support and your background, because half of what you said I was not aware of.
Yeah, no, well, Alan, it's the funny thing, and I get this all the time. Well, I don't have this background or whatever, right? And I said, well, guys, you have to understand, we're selling to physicians. and for many of you on the call, you appreciate this. Oh, so you go in the operating room and you help the nurses and the physicians. Are you a doctor? No, but I help doctors, right? I help doctors fix broken bones. That's all I did. I don't need to be a doctor to support them, but the doctors knew my background and they had trust and credibility. And my role was not to sell them. It was to help them and help. Then that's what we did. We provided solutions. The problem is, Alan, to your point, and we've talked about this. When I say we, Barry and I have done phone calls about this. The old, it's funny thinking about old movies and old TV shows, right? That unsavory salesperson that would sell you something you didn't want or need because they were so slick is not what we do in the medical device industry, because you have to go back and live there, right? You can't poop where you eat, and you can't burn those bridges. You may only have a handful of hospitals and you have to cultivate those relationships. And what happens is you can only support so many people. So you have a good product at a good price and you go in there and you help using your ability. And what happens is if you're not credible and you can't come across as authentic, I don't care how good of a salesman you are. And that's the bottom line. But the only way you can do that is when you look somebody in the eye and say, this is what I can do. This is the type of salesperson. This is how I can help you. This is my role. You really have to understand who you are, what you bring to the equation. And again, Tim, you look back at Tim has again, we have similar backgrounds moving through different parts of orthopedics. I could go from sports medicine, trauma to sports medicine to total joints. This company here, Hand Innovations, was a company that developed a dorsal plate, right? We did all types of fractures, reconstruction. I mean, again, we sold everything. So I was able to go in there and let people know I was able to help them. So if you're transitioning and you're looking at what you can bring to the market and who you can best fit, don't look at just where you are today. Think about everything you've done in the past and how it's led you to this journey to where you are today, because that's your whole story. So, all right. Melissa just joined us. And Melissa, welcome. You want to say hi? We have a few new people here. And Melissa's also in the process of transitioning, and she's had some, I think, recent interviews. So Melissa, you want to say hi and bring us up to date?
Yes, I'm so sorry for being late. My dog left me trails and trails of grossness this morning, and I couldn't leave.
All right, I got to go let my dog out, so I'll be right back.
So, anyway, I'm Melissa. I live in Littleton, Colorado, and I just had 2 more interviews last week, but I don't even know if you'd call them interviews, but I'm calling them because it was with peers. So when it was for AZI, this company, a pharmaceutical company that I've been targeting for a while, one is in their oncology division and the other one is in the neurology division. So I talked to 2 different people and I haven't heard anything. So I think it's time to follow up probably today or tomorrow, see what's happening there. So it was pretty exciting.
Great.
And it was just over the phone. I didn't have to do the virtual, so.
Melissa, can you spell that company name out?
It's EISAI.
Oh yeah, I've seen some roles. Okay, great.
And I thought they were based out of France, but they're out of Japan.
Oh yeah.
And they got about 1,500 employees in the US. So they're kind of on the smaller side, but yeah. They're coming out with some good stuff. So that's me. Who do we have new? Chris and Tim, George Clooney. Love that. It's funny.
And Wild, who probably stepped away from his desk for a moment.
Probably scared him with my story.
No, I doubt it.
Hi, Alan.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
No
And
complaints.
Natasha, we got to talk one of these times.
We do.
I know, we got to set something up. Very
Yes.
helpful. I missed you guys. I had to jump on. I haven't even had my coffee yet.
Oh, no.
All right, hold on.
Zoom uncaffeinated.
Ah!
All right, Melissa,
Yes.
you know who this is or what it is?
He's bound and determined.
Someone needs to know. Oh my God! All right, you
Turn
know
it
what?
to decide.
It is to decide.
It's a coffee mug and it's from Star Wars. No?
Good
No.
try.
All right,
I said Star Wars as well.
all right. You know what? Listen. It's okay. It's all right. You know what? Now I'm at this point where I'm feeling really out of touch. Right. So,
I think,
yes.
Steve, I think the problem is that most of us know the quote unquote original Star Trek.
I'll
and this
go
is
with
a new
yeah.
Star Trek reference.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
you're a true Trekkie as opposed to people just being fans of the show.
What do you mean, Trekkie? This is like 30 years old. This show now at this point, but I know it's kind of funny. So I was talking to my kids one day. They were home, and I said, "Man, you guys are like the A-Team," and they're like, "What?" Like
You only
A-Team.
need a few thousand more ropes of gold to recognize the guy. Never mind the bald look. You know, it's just that's
I
all.
know. It is cultural. The funny thing is now I look at him like, yeah, now I know what my dad's going through. So I don't know. All right. So we have a few more minutes. Again, it's great conversation, and thank you, Natasha, for that's a great question, but it also sets the tone for a lot of the discussions about the right fit, and everyone's looking for something different, right? At the end of the day, part of this whole thing is what's available in your neck of the woods, what's a good fit for you, who's hiring. And the one thing I do want to share, and I think Tim brought this up earlier, ideally you want to dig your well before you get thirsty, i.e. start building relationships with people and the companies before the opening's there. And because the thing is, if you wait for the job to be open, what's going to happen?
Scramble.
Well, it's scramble. And at the same time, if you want to, and I'll just use sports medicine, if you want to focus on sports medicine, find out who the top players are in your neck of the woods, start networking and building relationships, right? Pick a target, go from the shotgun to the laser, be strategic. And this is the part that things have shifted over the last few years with social media. You want to start marketing yourself. Picking up the phone, reaching out, learning about the job, asking if you want to do surgical, what's the difference between a general surgery case versus an ENT case or an OBGYN or a podiatry case, and the list goes on, right? 47 surgical specialties, I think, and might have added more, but there's nuances and there's differences. There's pros and cons, not better or worse, just different. And I'll just share this story too. And again, Tim, you guys in orthopedics, Alan, when I started in orthopedics, I came home and my wife, her sister and her mother were nurses. So she had a little understanding about the medical field. We were dating. She knew I worked in the OR. She said, "Oh, how many women or female orthopedic reps are there in the company?" My wife was, she wanted to know. And I said, well, geez, funny you should mention, we only have a handful. And at the time, Synthes had 63 salespeople around the country back in 1988 when I started. And I said the majority of them either were nurses, surgical techs, and there was one other person that had a pharma background, but there was really 6 women orthopedic salespeople. And my wife said, is that unusual? Is that because it's an old boys club? And that was like the big thing, right? It's an old boys club. I said, well, honey, that's part of it. But the bigger issue is the women didn't want to change out of because I asked them, they didn't want to change out of their skirts and their suits 3 or 4 times a day because we would be changing in and out of scrubs. Also, we had to move a lot of equipment, right? So I called it my orthopedic assault vehicle, i.e. my minivan. It was filled with implants and instrument trays. And I was the local office. So if a customer called and said, Steve, I want to try your new fill in the blank, I have a 2-bay garage. One whole bay, I had shelves that had all my implants, right? I had to move that. So there were a lot of women who said, you know, I'm coming from pharmaceutical. All I have to do is carry a clipboard and a little briefcase. I don't want to carry all that hardware. So again, there were little things at the time. Some of it has shifted. Some of it is similar. So you have to take all these factors into consideration when you're looking at the roles. Any other thoughts, Tim? Wild? Go ahead.
Also, it's who your public is. I interface virtually not at all with the patient. It's strictly with the medical staff. So that's something I would encourage her to look at as well. In pain management, she's going to be dealing with the patient in many roles, a lot more direct, and that appeals to some people. It doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, there's so many, and again, this is why we have to measure twice and cut once, and this is why when you're networking, you ask the questions, right? You want to find out what is their why, and if you don't know, if you make the assumption, you don't want to be doing that during the interview process. You want to get those questions answered before you go to the interview process, and do that via networking, right? Network here. This is a great place. If you want to ask about an industry, a company, if we're on LinkedIn in the groups, I'll take the blame. Hey, Steve said to reach out, pick up the phone, share information, right? Because at the end of the day, even though you guys may be all over the country, you may know people that can help each other going forward. That's why we're networking. And again, some of you might have read this, right? I started the LinkedIn groups. My first one was called the OR Lounge because that's where I met a lot of the people, the other sales professionals I networked with. And even though we were in different specialties, the guy in Hartford who sold urology products helped me break into Yale when I was new, right? He told me who the players were. He told me how to get into materials management. So this was the same philosophy when we started this online networking. That's why I started these groups, because I thought it would be great to share those best practices online.
I've in my 53 years, I've probably done 4 major different careers, and I've never had the fraternal camaraderie that I've experienced in medical devices. It's everybody. It's a very tight world.
Well, well, it is a click, but here's the thing, Alan. All right, for those of you who don't know, do you know what the sphincter or pucker factor is?
Ew.
Okay. So when you do know what it is, then you'll be part of the club. And the easiest way to know what this is when you're in the middle of the OR in the middle of the night with a polytrauma patient, and the doctor saying, Steve, what do you have that I can use to help this patient, because we have to stabilize them, right? They have bilateral femur, tibia, a pelvic fracture, forearm fractures, they got a head injury. And you're in there and you're in the back getting the nurses and helping them prepare to help this physician stabilize this patient. Something breaks, something's missing, something's wrong. You have the best eye nurse in the hospital scrubbing in on a Saturday night with a polytrauma patient. Until you've been through some of those cases, you don't know what the pucker factor is. And that's why the camaraderie is so tight. Because once people understand what you've been through and what you're going through, and it happens, and Tim knows, even sports medicine, it may not be life-threatening, but there's a pucker factor. And, and we all have our own version of that. Come to Jesus, whatever you want to call it. But, selling the product is one thing, servicing and being there in the middle of the night. When people buy your product in a surgical rep, a good surgeon can use anything. But what they're buying is you.
No doubt.
You're the person who comes from Yale, Mass General, Bay State Medical, Hartford, University of Connecticut, and you've observed all these cases, and they turn to you and say, Steve, what are they doing down at Yale? What are they doing out on the West Coast or down South, because we just came from a training meeting? So you're the facilitator. You're helping conduct that surgery.
Yeah.
Tim, anything you want to add to that?
No, I would agree with everything you just said. You know, being in sports cases where things, you know, inevitably don't always go well. An anchor rips out, you know, or something like that. You mean, you talk about the pucker factor and how to be able to handle that kind of situation. You know, I've been in cases where competitors, they've been using something, competitors, and the guy says, well, that's never happened before. You know, that's one of those things you just kind of, that's not something you want to say. It doesn't instill a lot of hope with the surgeon. You know, I think the other thing that you guys have touched on is the lounge. I think our industry is such a unique space in that, you know, you come across competitors and inevitably you could sit for hours in a lounge because a case gets pushed and you can get to know that person pretty well. And like you said, network information back and forth with one another. You know, I think for the most part, people are pretty helpful. You know, you get those cavalier people that are really, in fact, Arthrex reps had that reputation as being a little too uppity for time to time. But if you you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it couldn't be any worse than the Synthes reps.
Right. But I think those are great opportunities in the lounge or in the waiting room, waiting to see someone. If you come across another rep, you know, start up a conversation with them. You know, we don't know what we don't know.
More
right?
applicable knowledge from my peers than I have in all of my training.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
and I just, unfortunately, guys, we got to jump off in a minute, but you know, you bring up a great point. You know, when you have your sales meetings, it's great the company shares information, but getting together with your colleagues and sharing those best practices was the reason why the social media, the medical device community, these groups are so important, because I can read a book, I can watch the procedure, but what I really need to know is what other people are doing to be successful, and that's why these calls and these groups are so important. All right, so unfortunately, top of the hour, we have to get on with our day. But thank you all for attending. It's been a great call. If you're around Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to jump on. Instead of coffee, you're allowed to bring your cocktails, but you have to provide your own, BYOB. And we'll continue the discussion. In the meantime, if Barry or I can be of any assistance in the group, feel free to reach out. You know, we're more than happy to network. Our goal here is to help facilitate in any way. In return, you know, the more we give, the more we get back. If you run into somebody who's transitioning and looking to grow their business, you know, please think of me and pass my name along. All right, everyone. Thank you. We'll catch up with you. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Good to see
All right.
you.